I have created a Perfect Wonderkid on Football Manager. Actually, I've created 6 of them, and you'll notice that they are all born and currently based in 6 different continents around the world. I have also given them the same current ability, the same potential, which is a maximum of 200 out of 200, the same reputation, and the same mental attributes, the hidden mental attributes that you can see here, as well as the same height and weight. With the only other difference between these 6 different Wonder Kids, other than the nation that they are born in, is their positions that they play in. Because I've also spread that out too, with a goalkeeper, a centre back, a defensive midfielder or centre midfielder, a winger who can play both sides, an attacking midfielder, and a striker. And what I want to know from this experiment is, how will these differences affect their careers? Will they all still go on and play for the best clubs in the world? Maybe they will affect their nations in international competitions. Will they go for a lot of money? And how many appearances will each of these players make in their careers? And I have actually made some predictions, so I'm curious to see if they actually come to fruition. Such as the Danish goalkeeper being stuck at a club and never getting any first team football, and then never actually progressing into his fully developed potential. And from previous experience, I'm kind of expecting either the winger or the attacking midfielder to get more Ballon d'Ors than the striker. So feel free to make your own predictions down below in the comments, as well as making sure you're subscribed while I holiday to find out exactly what happens. Now, to make this easier for me to track, I'm going to be saving it at every point of when the European calendar would be ending, which tends to be in the middle of June, which for the majority of these clubs is going to be kind of in the middle of that season. But eventually I'm kind of predicting that they won't be there anymore. We can see already 30 games played at Ottawa in the Canadian Premier League. The North American Perfect Wonderkid is having the most game time, as opposed to the Perfect Asian player at Vissel Kobe, who hasn't even started a game yet. And yet it's the European player who hasn't gained as much of the current ability compared to the others, which has surprised me, with the Perfect Europe goalkeeper only progressing 6 current ability compared to the Perfect Oceania player going up to 111 and looking really good playing from the wings, although they are trying to play him at left wing back. None of these players though are wanted by anybody yet, which does surprise me in some ways, but I guess their reputation is low enough that the big clubs in European football who would be looking for that high potential player probably doesn't know about them yet. And that was also the same situation 1 whole year later, kind of. Because at age 17, everybody remained at their current club other than the North American player who went to Toronto FC, which is obviously played in a different nation, but still part of the same country. And that move was for just under £500,000. And he's been playing some games in the MLS with 3 appearances so far as a striker, not scoring any goals, after what was a very good rookie start to his Canadian adventure in the Canadian Premier League. It is now the South American Perfect Wonderkid who leads the way in current ability, up to 132, and it's still the goalkeeper who's at the lowest, who is down at 107. And by year number 2 we have some more movements, and I can't say that I'm all too surprised at where one of the players headed. Because how many times have you done a save where one of your Wonder Kids is wanted by PSG and then just stuck in their under-19s? That's what's happened here to Supersport United, who lost their perfect African midfielder for 210k, and he's just been stuck in their under-19s and won't even see the light of day, probably for the next 3 or 4 years. There is another bit of movement though, as the perfect South American centre-back has gone to Arsenal. And actually, although he's in the under-21s, I think he's in a good position because he's playing a few games in the Premier League. He's played 1 so far, so he has debuted for Arsenal, and he's at a good point where his actual current ability of 146 might see him actually make some game time sometime soon. What I do find quite amusing as well is some of the players that haven't moved has begun to look elsewhere, with the Perfect Asian Wonderkid asking to move for a bigger club. The one in Australia is actually actually wanted by Manchester City and PSG, so the inevitable there will happen. And the perfect North American player, the guy who's already moved, wants to leave the club as well after playing in the MLS for a couple of seasons, and actually has scored 11 goals in his last 12 games in the MLS. The perfect European Wonderkid though is kind of content at Randers despite only just starting to get some game time and not really developing as much as the other guys. He is now up to 128 current ability, which is again still the lowest. Just another year later, so we're 3 years in, and 2 of these players have climbed to astronomical numbers in terms of current ability, and one of them hasn't even left their original club yet. The perfect Asian attacking midfielder at Vissel Kobe has climbed to a huge 167 current ability and hasn't even moved club. He is now wanted though by PSG, which could be quite frustrating if he does move there, although I do think he will be given some game time, and he's hardly lit the Japanese league up on fire. He just looks really, really good. As does the perfect North American player. The Canadian is now at FC Porto after moving from Toronto FC for £6.5 million, and he has really hit the ground running. 24 goals in 28 games in the Portuguese top division, and look how incredible he already looks. That pace is scary, the off the ball and the finishing is fantastic, and his now current ability is 170, very close to his maximum of 200. The perfect Wonderkid from Australia has also moved to PSG and is sat in their second team, only moving for £1.4 million. He is getting game time in their second team though, but he hasn't quite progressed to the heights of the others, and is in fact now the lowest current ability player out of the 6, with the goalkeeper climbing up to the 3rd lowest, now sat at 152. That's probably because he's been getting quite a lot of game time in some first team football. However, he's wanted by Man City and is asking to leave. And by year number 4, all of these 6 players have left their original clubs, and I'm kind of disappointed in all of them in some way or another. Because we now have 2 players at Arsenal, with the North American striker moving from Porto for £55 million after that fantastic start in Portugal. The South American one was already there, and now we have 3 players at PSG, and one of them has gone to the Saudi League, and that is the goalkeeper, who, yes, I was complaining that he might not get some game time. He of course is getting game time, but I didn't anticipate him in going to Saudi Arabia. The correlation between all-time appearances and their actual current ability doesn't quite match up, with the perfect Asian player having the lowest appearances but one of the highest current abilities, above the perfect European goalkeeper, the perfect South American defender. The Oceania winger is at 155, which is the lowest despite having the 3rd highest appearances. The perfect African midfielder is currently sat on 158 current ability after only 130 appearances. And again, these are in the 2nd division as well for PSG's second team. Of course, there's no Ballon d'Ors yet, so let's move forward a few years and see what happens. Let's give it 5 years. Lots of movement happening in those 5 years, including 2 players going to Bayern Munich, with the perfect Asian centre attacking midfielder leaving PSG after not really getting into their first team. Bayern Munich giving him that, now up to 199. The European goalkeeper is also now at Bayern Munich after his few years in Saudi Arabia, moving for £52 million, and he has benefited from that too at 197. We've still got 2 players at PSG though, and this guy has actually requested to leave, the South African centre midfielder, despite being 200 out of 200 current ability, as well as the perfect Oceania winner, who is still at PSG and is wanted by Chelsea, but has been getting a lot of game time and maybe doesn't want to make that move. He has played 307 total appearances and scored 91 goals. But the standouts are probably the 2 that are at Arsenal. The North American striker, who is wanted by Newcastle and Real Madrid, still at Arsenal though, has been scoring a ton of goals in the Premier League and really benefited from that, with 200 out of 200 current ability, and has scored 250 49 goals in 382 games, but the South American centre-back, who is now the best centre-back in the world, also at Arsenal, has also been scoring a lot of goals and has a very good average rating. And one of them so far has won a Ballon d'Or, but can you take a guess at which one? Well, it happened just one season previously, and it was the Oceania winger from Australia who is currently at PSG. He has won the Ballon d'Or as a winger. Not quite sure how. I mean, his milestones to suggest possibly we are underselling how he's actually done it, because he was a Champions League winner back-to-back. He won it once previously before actually winning the Ballon d'Or. I thought I'd go back and check the Next Gen award, because only one of them actually won it, and that surprised me, which was the perfect North American striker while he was at Porto, now of course at Arsenal. I've simulated another 5 years though, and we've got more transfer movements, and we've got 2 new Ballon d'Or winners to congratulate. Now, the North American striker and the Oceania winger have not moved. They are still at PSG and Arsenal, but the other 4 have, starting with the South American defender who moved from Arsenal to Manchester City for £80 million, which seems like a bit of a bargain really when you consider how good he actually is. We also have movement from the goalkeeper who moved from Bayern Munich to Chelsea for £100 million, and that's probably been worth it for Chelsea after getting consecutive 20 clean sheets in a season. The perfect African midfielder is also finding himself at Manchester City after his movement from PSG on a free transfer, running out of contract. He was requesting to leave anyway. And the perfect Asian attacking midfielder is also at Chelsea in the Premier League for a free transfer from Bayern Munich. So some clubs have been absolutely ripped off, but all of them now are close to, if not 200 current ability. The all-time appearances is led by the North American striker, of course has the most goals as well, but the winger also has 180 goals in total, with the perfect Asian attacking midfielder on 136. But as I mentioned, we've got 2 new Ballon d'Or winners, including that North American striker, going against my earlier prediction, although the perfect African centre midfielder was actually 3rd in that year, but also the perfect Asian attacking midfielder has won it 2 years ago, meaning that it's 1-1-1 so far in Ballon d'Ors. 4 years later though, and there are no more Ballon d'Or winners so far anyway, we've got another movement to Saudi Arabia, and we've got some unhappy people. The unhappy Wonderkid is the perfect North American striker at Arsenal, who feels like it's time to move on for a new challenge. And I don't blame him really. He has been at Arsenal for way over 10 years now, and he's done pretty much all he can possibly do in this league. He's won the Premier League multiple times. He's actually won the FA Cup and the Champions League. So he's kind of done everything in this division. There has been some movement though. We've got the Oceania winger now at Real Madrid after moving on a free transfer from PSG. We have got the perfect European goalkeeper still at Chelsea. The South American centre-back is at Al Nassr after moving from Manchester City for £49 million. That one did surprise me a little bit. None of the Wonderkids so far have been able to influence the winners of the World Cup. The only one that came close was the goalkeeper, whose team Denmark came in 3rd place in the most recent 2038 World Cup. Unfortunately though, we've got some more movements to the Saudi League, who just love to ruin all of our fun, don't they? Because 4 out of the 6 players now play in that Saudi League, with the perfect Asian centre attack midfielder going for £40 million to Al Hilal. We've got the North American striker whose new move from Arsenal was to go to the Saudi League. And then, of course, the South American centre-back is still at Al Nassr, and the winger is at Al Ittihad after he moved for free from Real Madrid 3 years later. But this is also the last time we will see some of these players because of retirement. So take a look at statistics before that happened. The highest amount of appearances was actually the perfect European goalkeeper, which I kind of expected if you're the best around in that one position. Without getting as many injuries, you're gonna play the most games. The second highest was the centre midfielder with 687 so far. The South American centre back with 640, and then it's no surprise to me that the more attacking players are the ones with a lot less appearances. They of course have the most goals though, with the North American striker getting 417, the perfect Asian centre attacking midfielder so far with 195, and 159 for the Oceania winger. But a year later, with all of the players aged 36 now, coming up to 37, 2 of them have already retired, and the North American striker is about to retire at Al Hilal, which leaves us with the perfect European goalkeeper, the African centre midfielder, and the Asian centre attacking midfielder, who all still look really good. And you wouldn't exactly want them to retire if you had them at your club. 2 more dropped off just before their 38th birthday though, with another already announcing his retirement as well in the perfect African midfielder at Al Hilal, leaving just the perfect European goalkeeper who is going to be 38 next year, still playing in Saudi Arabia for one last season. But the inevitable happened just 1 year later, as the final Perfect Wonderkid left has announced his retirement in the middle of June, about to happen, aged 38, just before his 39th birthday. Now the Ballon d'Or was still only won by those 3 players. Since the perfect Asian attacking midfielder won it, there have been no other Perfect Wonderkids who have won it, which did surprise me slightly and meant that my prediction was kind of wrong in all 3 regards. There was only 3 Ballon d'Or winners, but they only won it once, with the perfect striker being one of them. And none of them, including the goalkeeper, ever really got stuck at a club and didn't actually reach their full potential. It took a while for him to get there under Randers, but once he moved to Saudi Arabia, he very quickly progressed into the player that he developed in eventually. So that is what happens when we play 6 Perfect Wonderkids in different positions around 6 different continents on Football Manager. I hope you did enjoy it. Maybe your predictions were correct. And finally, let me talk to you about TCW. We are raising money this time round for Jeremiah's journey, and if you can, please donate. I will leave a link at the top of the description, or you can even watch the latest shows. I'll leave links to those, including my match, and if you want to come to a future show, you can buy tickets too, to the Electric Boogaloo, which is happening this month in April. Why not check out this video right here, because it is an absolute banger, as myself and Dad, actually no, my dad takes Dover all the way from the Vanarama National League south as high as he can possibly go.